it may take a few seconds for all the channels to pick up the live streaming. Welcome everyone to the Fridays Mastermind of Wellness, where we bring wellness to tech companies as a health benefit. And today is my pleasure and honor to introduce one more time one of our experts, Laura Chattington. And today she's going to be sharing a live demonstration what it is like to work with Laura and work with the Daily Freedom team to bring wellness to your organization. She's going to be covering ways to fast track your career so you can have a communication that enables you to earn more money, have a better sense of freedom in your job, and have the purpose be aligned with what you do as a career. Your life purpose be aligned with what you do as a career. Laura, welcome. I'm so excited for this and excited about also your guest that you brought in today.
Thank you, Fernando. So most people, when asked, can you introduce yourself? What do you do for a living? Why should I add you to my team? Why should I invest in you? Tell me about your experience. Why should I give you the job? Don't have a persuasive answer for this kind of question. One that not only answers those questions, but gets the person you're interested in, gets the person you're talking to interested in what you're saying. Ever feel like you're missing out on opportunities because you haven't got a personal pitch to take into formal or informal situations and ready to go and use anytime you need it? My name is Laura, and today I'm going to take you through a demonstration of just some simple techniques of being able to introduce yourself so that people are engaged with what you're saying, and talk a little bit about your experience. And as Fernando said, I have a guest on this session today who's going to help me demonstrate the tools that we're going to go through today. And his name is Rakesh. So Rakesh, I call him Rax actually, which is why I'm getting confused. But Rakesh, welcome to today. And just if you don't mind, please introduce yourself a little bit and tell us about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, thanks very much for inviting me, Laura. It's a pleasure to be here. So my name's Rakesh, and by way of introduction, I'll just lay out a small montage of who I am, my business life, and a little bit about me. So the first facet is that my background and profession, if you could call it that, has been in information technology. I've been in that sector for around about 28 years now. I think I've held most of the roles in software engineering, from being a developer through to being an analyst, a program manager, a director, and currently an enterprise architect. I really enjoyed that engineering journey. It's certainly given me a lot of insight into actually hands-on coding and making things work. Another part in my montage is that I've been an entrepreneur, in and out of a few businesses. A couple of those have been in the building industry, building services. We also created and sold on an FX brokerage at some point in our careers. And also, I've been an active angel investor and advisor to a couple of angel groups here in London. I was born in India, proudly have a Made in India badge somewhere lurking in my in my set of tattoos that I don't have. Moved to England when I was about 6, so I can call myself a hybrid. I guess I've got a spiritual heart, and India plays a big role in my cultural values. I really enjoy public speaking. That's where I met Laura. We've been in Toastmasters for quite a few years. I've got a whole varied, eclectic mix of things that I enjoy, from quantum physics to enjoying artwork and painting. I certainly think I enjoy music, but that's a varied taste. And I sometimes partake in granddad dancing and make many inappropriate and silly jokes. So I hope that's given you a small summary of who I am and my background.
Thank you, Rakesh. And ask any Toastmaster to introduce themselves, and they give you a 30-minute debrief on everything. So thank you. That's great. But actually, it is very helpful for what we're going to do today. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to go through some slides and share some content. And I would ask anyone who's watching this to sort of play along with the questions and answer the questions. But I'm going to use Rakesh to demonstrate how to actually use these techniques. So how to talk about yourself, how to introduce yourself. And actually, although there may be sort of entrepreneurs on this call, it's really about, when you're working in companies and you're working, you have jobs, and how you introduce yourself when you have a job. So I'm going to share my slides, and between Rakesh and I, we should be able to technically manage this. So can you see that? Yes, you can. Yeah, good.
Yes.
So normal answers, when you're asked, what do you do? Tell us a bit about you. When you're sitting in those meetings and there's like 20 people in there, and everyone goes, hi, I'm Laura, I'm blah. Hi, I'm Rakesh, I'm a software engineer. And everyone says these kinds of things. And in my previous life, this is the sort of thing that I would say. I would say I'm a senior director in a communications agency working on global communications accounts. People that I have worked with have said things like, I'm a technical lead for a software development company. I work in sustainability and I run the global sustainability projects for a big tech company. This is kind of what we are conditioned to do in the corporate world as a way of introduction. And the thing is that unless your title is something like, and no disrespect to Rakesh or anyone else, unless you are saying something like, I'm the CEO of Google, and that immediately gets everyone's attention. If you're the sort of 15th person in the room to introduce yourself, we get to this state. And this is one of my favorite pictures, because I'm a fundamental believer that you need to get people's attention before you communicate with them. So I'm going to tell you the secret to influencing other people.
Laura, I have a request for folks that will be listening to the replay on listen only mode. Can you paint the picture of what that amazing image is?
So this is my pet dog, and the dog is got his jaw on the desk with his eyes looking very sad, thinking, oh, please get on with that introduction. I've heard 1,000 introductions like this. And when you're sitting in meetings, when you're sitting in rooms, when you're sitting in presentations, but just because people are physically there doesn't mean that they're paying attention. So this kind of dog represents perhaps how people might be feeling. So the secret to influencing other people, and this is the kind of key takeaway of virtually everything that when I'm working with clients is in what we do. The secret to influencing other people is to meet them where they are, not where you're coming from. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. So most people, when we interact with other people, we're thinking about, what do I need to say? What am I thinking about? What do I need? What are my actions? What do I need to get from this interaction? Who's in the meeting that I need to speak to? What are the outcomes that I want? Because it's the most natural thought process to go through, because that's like how humans think, okay? So when we're asked questions, we do it from this perspective. Now, what we're talking about doing instead is thinking very consciously about what the person you're talking to is specifically interested in. So where are they in terms of what you do? What are they thinking about? How are they coming to that interaction? What are their fears? What are their challenges? What are their aspirations? What do they want? What do they want to know from the conversation you're having with them? What do they already know about what you're doing? And really thinking very, very carefully about where the person you're interacting with, or the people that you're interacting with, where they're coming into that conversation. And it seems very simple and it seems obvious, but when you really think these things through, and when you're thinking about it coming into a meeting, then it changes the way that you communicate with other people. Because what we're going to do is we're going to match what you say to the challenges, the benefits, the triggers, the influences of the people that you're talking to. So the number one secret to influencing others, to getting that rapport and getting that connection, is thinking through and meeting them where they are instead of where you're coming into that conversation. So in relation to just that initial introduction that we've done already, we're going to think about it, we're going to change it and transform it into an introduction. I call it an introduction as a benefit reframe, which sounds a bit kind of marketing, and it's about introducing yourself in terms of the benefits that you bring to the table, to that person, to the world, to whatever it is you do. So you start by positioning what you do in terms of what your audience is interested in, and thinking through what their pains, what their wants, their desires, their influences are, and you match those two things together. And when you do this, it really engages people immediately, because it's about them. You're not talking about you and how you categorize yourself. You're thinking about what are the things that they want out of this conversation? How do I interact with them? How do I get rapport with them? How do I meet them where they are? So I'm going to give you some examples, and then we're going to get back to Rakesh and work with his introduction. So in my previous life, I'm a senior director in a communications agency working on a global communications account for an energy company. That's the kind of thing I'd say. I'd say things like my background's in tech and project management. I'm a computer science graduate, all these kind of labels that we put on ourselves, because that's how we've been taught to describe who we are. If I was targeting people who I wanted to do business with, potential clients or potential people I wanted to engage with the services or the job that I provide, some of the benefits that I would bring to them is something like this. So I might say, my job is about building marketing strategies to communicate, engage, and to ultimately get value for my client stakeholders. So all of this, I've flipped it around, and I'm talking about things that my clients or people in the business are interested in finding more out about. Because you're kind of like, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. Tell me more about that. And I might go into more detail and say, we do deep dive analysis of what's working in industries and create content and communication for different stakeholder profiles. And again, all I'm doing is I'm trying to tweak the interest and get people sort of engaged in thinking, I want to find out more. So I'm going to give you a few more examples of some of the clients that I've worked with. So I'm a global head of sustainability for a big tech company. Okay, so, generalistic terms. And working through this process, she came up with, my job is about transforming a $40 billion tech company to becoming net zero by 2050 and helping the business transition to new sustainable business models. Now, if she says that to you, you're kind of like, wow, gosh, how are you going to do that? It immediately brings questions to you and you want to find out more rather than just going, oh, okay, cool, got it. Another example, I'm a director in a social fund for end-of-life care services. Going through this process comes out with, my job is about investing in end-of-life services that minimizes emotional trauma, saves people money, and are tailored to individual home environments to make this time in your life as comfortable as possible. Again, it tweaks the curiosity and the intrigue of like, God, that sounds interesting. What do you do? How do you do that? I'm a director in a PR agency. I help consumer clients build their customer base, increase their customer value, create audience-focused awareness specifically to their markets. Again, thinking very much in terms of the benefits. And then for me, in what I do now, I say something normally like I'm a communication and presentation trainer. Hello. Two, I help professionals over 35 who feel their careers are plateauing to do more in 3 months than they did in the last 3 years to fast track their career. And again, it's like, tell me more. That sounds really interesting. So all you want to do is get the hook and get people interested in talking to you and get them interested in what you're saying, right? Not just introduce yourself and say hello. So the kind of framework to use is, and you want to use it in the words that you're comfortable with, are things like, my job is about benefit to the people that you're talking to. The work I do is about benefit. I'm passionate about what I spend most of my time on is benefit. My company is about benefit. So whatever the framework you want to use, but you're loading up your introduction with the benefits that you bring to the table. Back to Rax. I've got a note, otherwise I get confused. So back to Rakesh. So when you first introduced yourself at the beginning of this, and again, Rakesh hasn't had the benefit of going through this process, and he actually he did go on and tell us lots of interesting things about his life and what he did, but actually he started off by saying, I wrote them down actually, I've been a software engineer, I've been an analyst, can't say that word, I'm a director, I'm a coder. He listed a whole load of names. I was just like, awesome, this is a great demonstration, because he's done exactly what I hoped he was going to do, which is what most people do, and that is they have a kind of label of who they are. I'm a coach, I'm a techie, I'm a director, right? And they start by introducing themselves like that. So I'm going to put you a bit on the spot here, Rakesh, and you're welcome to take a bit of time. So let's just start by saying, given your job role as opposed to your entrepreneurial role, in your job, who are the types of people that you're going to be talking to and want to engage with and get their attention and influence? Who are the types of people you'd be talking to?
Well, there's one engagement I'm on that's a little bit more corporate, I think probably makes sense for this. And that people I'll be engaging with are other software engineers and a couple of business owners, you could say. They manage an area of the business to do with health and safety devices. Okay.
So are they potential clients, or are they part in the company? Are they potential clients for you, or?
No, they actually hired me to manage some software services for them, some software that they're developing out in India.
Okay. And so we're either and you can do this for different people that you talk to, but if you're going to pick one just for the sake of the demonstration, pick a profile.
Okay, so this profile would be as what they call an enterprise architect. So somebody who translates business requirements to technology blueprints. Yeah.
Okay. And what are some of their, when you go through this in detail, you'd go through lots of different questions, but actually one of the most influencing ways to get people's attention is to push their pain points and their challenges, because that gets people's attention. So if I am an enterprise architect, which I'm not, but let's pretend I am, what are some of the pain points or challenges that I have that you can solve for me?
Okay, so one of the biggest pain points is aligning what a company has in terms of their strategy, where they want to go. Maybe they want to enter a new market. And the pain points is, well, what are those strategies? Are they viable? And then to use technology to actually make them work.
Okay.
Tends to be a lot of questions and obviously complexity around that.
And that is something that you solve, right? You solve.
Yeah.
You, Rakesh, you can go in and help them solve those problems.
Yeah, I think to summarize, we create architectural visions. So we take all those requirements and make a vision that's viable to actually be coded and made into a reality.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a Toastmaster 60 seconds or so to come up
Right.
with an introduction in the format that I've spoken about. So who you are. Hi, I'm Rakesh. My job is about, and then in the format of what you can add and what benefits you bring to them. If you were talking to them, I will pretend to be one of those.
Sure. Is this for the purposes of a job interview? Something like that?
Yeah,
I could try to find some context where I would actually use this.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that you're in a meeting where let's say it's not a job interview. Let's say you're just in a meeting with these guys, and at the beginning of all those corporate meetings, and everyone goes, right, let's just go around the room and introduce yourselves. Everyone goes, hi, I'm Laura, I'm a director of Blur. Hi, I'm the engineer of Blur. And it kind of, everyone's just like the dog, right? So It's an opportunity to get people's attention by sort of changing the way that you introduce yourself. So instead of saying I'm the label X job engineer, you're going to say something like, these are the types of things I solve, which is what you described.
Okay, let's give it a whirl.
Okay, so I don't know if you want a bit of time just to think it through or write it down, or whether you're going to go for it straight away.
What about a minute? A minute always good, isn't it?
Okay.
Should we go for a minute?
Let's take a minute. And if you are watching, listening, however other way we consume this, it's just worth going through this process as well. I'm actually going to time a minute so I don't get distracted. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, so Rakesh, please introduce yourself to the room.
I'm Rakesh. We champion the definition of your strategies. We help to clarify what they may be and provide a really useful set of diagrams and easy to understand roadmaps. We help flex those strategies. They're not often aligned to things that are viable. And of course, we might look at new opportunities that perhaps were undiscovered. Quite crucially, we help to shortlist those strategies and outcomes and make sure that they're viable and they're the most achievable for the timescales at hand. And then finally, we formulate ways of actually making that happen in technology, find the right vendors and the great mix of people that you would need to be really innovative, in today's really challenging technology markets. So I'm an enterprise architect and my name is Rakesh.
So great introduction, because if I'm sitting there thinking, this is exactly what I need, right? And if I'm listening to that and everyone else has said, I'm a this, I'm a that, and then you introduce yourself like that, I'm thinking, I need strategy. I need help with, putting in my technical strategy. He's going to do it in the right timelines. He's going to help me, but he's going to solve all my problems. I need to talk to him. Now, it might be that you're introducing yourself in a meeting. It might be in a networking situation. It might be in a job interview, as you said, but immediately you've got my attention because I'm like, you're just going to solve all my problems. So the person that I'm going to focus on and engage with is you, because of the way that you've introduced yourself. And I always think, you have to earn the right to get people's attention. Even when they're sitting there looking straight at you, their brain is sometimes off doing something else, right? So great intro. And I know that I've put you on the spot here doing this. One of the most natural things that will happen in our interaction if we had just met or we were in a sort of business environment. And so I would go, that sounds really interesting. Tell me more about it. That's kind of the natural human tell me more about it. So briefly, tell me more about it. How do you do that?
So was that a question?
Yeah, it was.
I missed the cue there, didn't I? So how we do this is something. Shall I carry on with it, or
go for it? So tell me more. You've just given me that amazing introduction. Tell me more. Tell me more, Rakesh.
Yeah. So if you're unfamiliar with this territory, there are models out there that we use. So one of them is called TOGAF. It's got a really uncatchy name, hasn't it? But anyway, in the industry, it allows us to use a methodology that really encompasses all of the things that I've mentioned. But what I do extra and specific is to tailor that to our requirements for your company and your processes. So we'll just mix and match all of the good things that we need from there. And we follow a certain process to get to the end.
Okay. So thank you, Rakesh. And that is a natural interaction that we would have very unnaturally in this session. And I think the next sort of step to building this pitch, this personal pitch, is exactly developing what you've just said in a way, again, that is interesting and influential to the people that you're talking to. Because not only do you want to answer the question, but you also want to see it as an opportunity to build your credibility and build your authority in the interaction, right? You want people to go, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about, or he's worked on something that's interesting. I want to find out more. So whenever you're in these situations, whatever it is an opportunity to build credibility. Now, when we're talking about ourselves, sometimes we're in danger of maybe sounding too brash or sounding, we want to put ourselves forward and tell everyone how much value we can bring to the table, but we don't want to be arrogant about it. And a way to start giving details about what you do and how you do it, a really good way to do that is using examples. And I'm going to flip back to my slides because I want to show you a few things about how to give examples. So when you're asked to give more information, a good way of indirectly building your credibility is to say, well, for example, right? So it's a really good strategy to talk about yourself without talking about yourself. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to do that. And Rakesh, then I'm going to come back and we're going to just develop what you just described to me in a slightly different way, okay, with the intention to get people's attention. So let me just flip back to my screen. So why using examples is a great way of building your credibility. They're believable, right? They're believable. When you start using examples in the way that I'm going to explain now, they're believable, that you can build your credibility, and they're indirect. So you don't sound like you're just talking about yourself. You're just trying to help and give examples to the other person you're talking to. And you can create examples that really have impact. And again, getting people's attention, earning the right to their attention, and making sure that they're like, oh, that sounds really interesting. I want to find out more. So let me go back to my example. I was talking about, I'm a senior director of a communications agency. I work for example, I work for an energy company to help them with their corporate comms. We published an annual review, investor meetings, webinars, email campaigns, social media campaigns, and made films for their global stakeholders. We tracked and measured all of our comms and made consistent improvement, including over 200% improvement on engagement. So again, that, it sounds interesting, kind of, but it's very, very generic. It's kind of like, and so does everyone else in the world do that too. So is there a more engaging strategy? Well, the key to being more engaging in whatever you're saying is to be very specific. Be very specific, because it makes it more believable and it has more impact. So if I use that principle in my example, I might say something like, for example, I took a $14 billion global energy company client who published an annual review, downloaded by 198 people to expand reach, stakeholders, and getting more bang for their buck by 255%. After we did peer analysis, for example, on 18 data points, we started by defining the messaging and going through an annual reporting process. We then leveraged the content created for different stakeholders on different platforms to increase engagement. This included things like investor meetings at the London Stock Exchange and Singapore, webinars, email sequences, global social media campaigns in 38 countries, digital microsites, global filming, which all increased the results by 255%. So that's completely different to saying something like this, right? It's completely different because I've just added very specific things into the example that I've given. I've talked about billions, big stats, 255%, whereas I talked before over 200%. When I say it's 255%, it's very specific, it's more believable. Adding things in like 18 data points and name dropping. We did events at the London Stock Exchange in Singapore. I'm not saying like I did, events at the London Stock Exchange. I'm like, for example, we did investor meetings at the London Stock Exchange in Singapore, and we rolled it out in 38 countries. So it's an opportunity to really build your credibility. Because if I'm communicating across 38 countries and I'm doing these kind of events, I must be doing something that has some credibility, right? So it's an opportunity to really load up those examples with benefits that are important to the people that you're talking to, and also building your credibility. So again, the framework is to give examples. For example, for instance, let me give you some examples about the type of thing I do. Or, you know what, in the last 12 months, in the last 3 years, we have. And you really want to be giving very specific examples, specific success stories, people that you've worked with, using exact numbers, dates, names, facts, figures, anything that you can really build those examples with to build that credibility. Because when you talk in this way, when you articulate your experience in this way, it's really interesting and people want to find out more. So when can you use the examples really at every opportunity that you have, in meetings, in interviews, in presentations, pitches, in casual conversations that you're having over coffee, in senior stakeholder interactions. It's really a very powerful way to share the experience that you have. Okay. So Rakesh, back to you, just to demonstrate how to apply this in a real live-ish environment. You talked about using how you applied what you do, and we were, if you remember, we were coming from the value that you bring. I'm going to give you another minute. You've got a whole minute again to think through, just using some examples of what the person you're talking to might be interested in, and really filling those examples with very specific information, specific data points, names, countries, teams, people, whatever it is that's relevant to your example. I'm going to give you another minute, a whole one. And other people, if you want to do this too, it's a really good exercise that you can go through yourself. Fernando, sorry, were you going to say something?
Yes, this is fascinating. And I have a client that I need to go support in about 30 seconds. So I've been doing the exercise here, and it's so exciting because I came up with a new way to introduce myself. So thank you, Laura. I'm excited for Rakesh too, for what happens next. I'll watch the recording. So please, Laura, when you're done, wrap it up. I'll make you the host, and then this will be available in all podcasts and also major social media sites for video. Thank you, Laura.
Awesome. We're going to be about another 5 minutes and then we're done. So thank you, Fernando, for keeping us to better time than we were going.
You're doing great. Go for as long as you like, and have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much. So Rakesh, I'm going to give you a minute now, just because you've had a bit more of an interruption, but I'm going to give you a minute, and then everyone can sort of, again, I would encourage people just to write down just to go through these examples, because actually, once you sort of build these examples, you can use them all the time, and you only have to go through them once, and you can sort of iterate them, and you've got them. I sort of talk about having these examples in your pocket that you can talk about all the time when you get the opportunity to. So I've started my minute, Rakesh, and I will be quiet for a minute. It's difficult. Oh, that's my minute up. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, so Rakesh, that sounds really interesting. Tell me a bit more about what you do.
Well, let's choose a correlated example. So we work for Domino's Pizza Inc. Who doesn't like a pizza, right? This was the master franchise in the UK. And the challenge they had at the time was to reduce the amount of time it takes from when you place an order by phone or by mobile phone app to when it leaves the shop. That's called out the door time. And in that industry, if you can get it to 15 minutes or less, then your sales really can quite increase a lot. So we analyze that situation using the TOGAF framework I'd mentioned. We align that to some strategic goals with franchisees, and we developed a whole new set of technologies in store that allowed employees to be encouraged by a management information system displayed around screens in the store, all real time. And we create little competitions between stores and the franchise. And they really enjoy that because they're rewarded by pizzas, but also bonuses to their salaries and so on. I'm glad to report that increased sales by at least 124% week on week. It's really important to remember that the matching of weeks to the last year's weeks are quite key in that industry. And it was so well received, it was rolled out to their German, Ireland, and also their Polish franchisees. So I'm really glad to have had that experience, which we can apply to the problem at hand for you.
Sounds awesome. Right. And the difference between what you said before and what you're saying now, not only is, I'm really hungry actually, and I really would like a pizza, and 15 minutes would be good, but actually it's just so much more engaging. And I think everyone would probably say the same on the call, is it's so much more engaging. It's interesting. You know, when you're asking people to talk about themselves, it just reframes it. You know, let me give you an example. And you sort of went into the Domino's example. You name, you know, exactly what you did, the process, where they were operating, and the increase in efficiency. And all of a sudden I'm just like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Again, it helps you get people wanting to know more, and that is the key. And at the same time, I sort of walk away going, oh, Rakesh is the guy that worked on that Domino's tech thing. When it comes up for me again, I'm going to give you a call, right? So it's really quite a simple, it's a simple process to go through, but actually once you change around how you position what you say in this way by really being specific and using really good examples, it transforms what you say to be really engaging. And it's really, really helpful, especially when we're all out there, everyone's talking all the time and trying to get everyone's attention. Did you have any other thoughts, Rakesh? Not that you should, but any other thoughts or any other comments, any other questions that you wanted to just before we finish?
One of the comments that I would have is, do you need to have a specific example for each question you might be asked? Because you probably need quite a battery of different responses in your mind. And
Yeah.
would you coach your clients into at least listing those out and perhaps trying to memorize or have some way of recalling them?
Yeah, so actually that's the question everyone asks, actually, which is a great question to ask. So in the end, you're going to have different stakeholder, I would call them stakeholder groups, but then I come from the corporate world. You'll have different sets of people who are interested in different things, who have different pain points, different challenges, different benefits. And what I would suggest that you do when you go through this process is start with the people that you talk to the most, right? There's probably, if you went through and said, okay, there's 5 different stakeholder groups or 5 different types of people I talk to, start with the group that you kind of interact with the most, or that is most important to you. So maybe they're sort of your client profile. Maybe there are, senior stakeholders in your company profile, and go through that process with them in mind. Think through their profile, what they're interested in, and what you do that benefits them. And what you'll find is you then sort of come out, and I think there are, you can match, depending on what you say in your introduction, you can then match your examples to back up what you said in your introduction. So if you made 3 points, I do this, I do this, I do this, you could create examples for each of your 3 points. You could do it like that. So once you've sort of got that foundation of content, you want to ask yourself, right, who else am I speaking to and what are they interested in? And think about what their pain points are, what their challenges are, what are the benefit that you bring to them. And what you'll find is you sort of kind of tweak the content a bit, but a lot of it, about 80% of it is still the same sort of, you're talking about the same stuff, you're just framing it slightly differently. And I think what you find, and the other thing to do is to go out and test it with people, right? When you introduce yourself, is that if everyone's like not paying attention, you're not pressing their right button. So you want to introduce yourself and see how people respond and go and test it out. And when you're looking closely at people, they really, you'll see them go, oh yeah, that's totally, you know, what I'm interested in. So I think through the different types of people you're speaking to, change your introduction, change your examples to meet what they're interested in. But what you'll end up with is a kind of core set of content that you can use over and over again. You just might tweak some of the sort of intros and the extras. And another question that comes up is, you know, do I just do it once? Do I do it once and then it's done? And the answer to that question is, yes, you do it, but you can, you know, as you get more experience, or you have experience of different things, or maybe you've got a specific project that you've worked on, or a new client, or whatever it is, you can just add to your sort of deck of examples that you can bring up. And you find once you start talking in this way, and once you start interacting in this way, you really get into the rhythm of being very specific when you talk, and it helps you be much more concise when you interact with people. So there's sort of lots of benefits from getting into the process of doing this introduction and coming up with these examples. Yeah. Okay. So I think we have got to the end of this session, and hopefully everybody has gone through this process and thought through what their introduction is, what their examples are. And I think, as I said, the best thing to do is every time you introduce yourself, really see it as an opportunity to get people's attention, influence others to be interested in what you're saying, and promote yourself tactfully. And it's really useful to have that introduction full of benefits that you bring to the table, because that's how you get people interested in what you're saying. And when you're asked to expand on more information, that they want to hear about more of what you're saying, you give these examples that are really loaded with credibility and specific details, making them very believable, and making people just want to find out more about who you are, what you do, and how, you know, they want to interact with you. So it's really, really helpful. And I'm going to say thank you for everyone who is on this session. Rakesh, thank you so much for you going through this demonstration. You have been a true good Toastmaster with very comprehensive answers, and that's been really helpful to use as a demonstration. So thank you very much. And we will be having next week another demonstration with another expert in our group, who will be taking everyone through a different example. So join us next Friday. I'm not going to say the time, but if you're in London, it's 5:30. If you're in California, it is 9:30. And if you're somewhere else, it's a different time. So thank you very much. See you next week. And I look forward to catching up with you really soon.
Thanks, everyone. Great opportunity. Thank you, Laura.